Good morning from Magic Kingdom. We are finally testing out the brand new Lightning Lane multi-pass system. Okay, so real talk before we get started. My original plan today was to do Magic Kingdom and then park hop over to Hollywood Studios so that we could play around with that a little bit. However, when I was planning this video several days ago, I did not realize that there's going to be a tropical storm that is hitting today. Right now, the weather forecast says it's going to start raining in like a couple hours. So, a little bit of change of plans. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But first, let's talk about this new Lightning Lane multi-pass system. And we're going to jump on over to Epcot to past me. I'm going to explain this whole system for you. Let's talk about this Lightning Lane system. First things first, I want you to forget everything that you ever learned about Genie Plus. Genie Plus is no more. This system is completely different. So I just don't want you to forget everything because it will make explaining a lot easier. There are two new systems that you are able to purchase to skip the lines of various attractions here around Walt Disney World. Lightning Lane Single Pass. This is the replacement for individual Lightning Lanes. These are attractions that you purchase individually or like separately. Again, it's called Single Pass, so think single ride. When you purchase these, you're able to enter the Lightning Lane for those attractions during a specific return time window. These work almost exactly the same as individual Lightning Lanes did before. The only difference, and you'll see that this is the case with MultiPass too, is that you are now able to book these in advance of your trip. We'll talk more about that in just a second. The other new system is called Lightning Lane Multi-Pass. So just like Single Pass, you're booking one attraction, Multi-Pass allows you to book a whole bunch of attractions. This is the replacement for Genie Plus. So if you are familiar with that, this is kind of going to be how that one operates. Now, very important with this system and with Single Pass is that it's not something that you just buy, forget about, and then you can show up to attractions whenever you want. No, no, no. You book what's called a return time, which is a 1 hour time frame that you are able to enter the Lightning Lane or Fast Lane for that attraction. Because you do have to book those return windows, that means that these attractions are going to be based on availability. So there are going to be times that some rides will sell out or just have limited availability. The biggest update and change that is coming with these new systems is the ability to book ahead of your trip. This is great because this allows you some pre-planning so that you kind of have an idea going into your day what you are going to be doing. With this pre-booking window, you are able to select up to 3 attractions for your Lightning Lane Multi-Pass and then up to 2 attractions for Lightning Lane Single Pass. Now do keep in mind for all of these, they have to be different attractions. Any attraction that you book any of these Lightning Lanes with, you can only do 1 time per person per day. So for example, with Lightning Lane Multi-Pass, I can't book Big Thunder Mountain 3 times in 1 day. I can only do Big Thunder 1 time with the Lightning Lane, and then if I'm wanting to ride it more throughout the day, I can use the regular standby line. Let's talk about this Lightning Lane pre-booking windows. Now there are going to be a few different pre-booking dates depending on your situation. The first one is for Disney Resort guests. So these are guests who are staying at a Disney-owned resort, Disney Swan and Dolphin Resort, Disney Swan Reserve, or Shades of Green. Any other resort, even if it's a Good Neighbor hotel, does not apply in this first category. Any guests staying at the resorts that I just mentioned are able to book 7 days in advance of their check-in date. Now, I know sometimes that this can get a little bit confusing, so let me give you a really good example just so that you kind of know how to count your days. Today, when I'm filming this, it is August 1st. If I was a Disney Resort guest and I was getting up to do my pre-selections today, that means that my check-in date for my resort is on the 8th. So it's 7 days before your check-in date. Additionally, these guests are able to book for the entire length of their trip on that day, which is great because you just get to do it all at once at one time and then you're done and you don't even have to think about it. If you are not staying at a Disney resort or some of those other resorts that I mentioned, your booking window is going to open up 3 days in advance of your first park day. Now, if you have a date-based ticket, so that means that you just bought regular multi-day park tickets that can be used within a certain time frame, you are able to book for the length of your ticket at that 3-day mark. If you have an annual pass or maybe you have one of the cast member type main gate tickets, those you can only book 1 day at a time, 3 days in advance. So for example, For me, today is August 1st. I got up and booked for Sunday, August 4th, because that is the day that I am intending on using Lightning Lane Multipass. For all of these booking windows, it is going to open up at 7 a.m. Eastern, so you need to make sure that you are ready to go by that time so you have the best options. Now, I do have a little bit of some unfortunate news for my international friends. At this time, you are not able to do pre-selections if you live internationally. Canada is the exception to this, and don't take this as Disney being like coming out to get you or anything. A lot of it just has to do with a lot of weird legality things with apps and purchasing things and all of that kind of good stuff. Hopefully they'll be able to come up with a better solution in the future, but just know that you are not able to book your pre-selections until you are on US soil. Because of that, my kind of pro tip to you is that if you can, try and have your important multi-pass days towards the later end of your trip, so that way you have as early of a booking window as possible for those when you do get on US soil. This is kind of a good tip in general, even for guests that are not international, especially if you have access to that 7-day booking window. The further out that you can plan those important multi-pass days, which in my opinion is probably going to be Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios, the more availability and more chance you are going to have of getting the attractions that you really want for the times that you really want. Obviously, I know that this isn't going to be the case for every single person, but that's something that if you can do it, definitely do it. Now, if you're trying to book a virtual queue, be aware that those work exactly the same as they always have. Those will still be day of, and those will open up at 7 a.m. that morning or 1 p.m. for those trying to get those later times. Just be aware that if you're trying to do the 1 p.m. virtual queues, those you have to do inside the park. Have I already lost you? Don't worry, I do have a cheat sheet that lays out this entire kind of timeline process, so you can go grab that for free in the description box below. Now that we kind of understand what these systems are and when our booking windows are, let's talk about how that process actually goes. First things first, very, very crucial, you must make sure that everybody is linked properly in your My Disney Experience account. That means everybody can see everybody on their friends and family list, and their tickets and resorts are linked properly to the account. If anybody for some reason is not linked properly, they're not on your friends and family list, or their ticket isn't linked properly, you won't be able to book these systems for those guests. So it's super important to make sure this is done ahead of time so that you don't run into snags on that morning. Additionally, I highly recommend making sure that you have a credit card on file as well as your phone number. This is going to make the checkout process much smoother, because if you don't have those credit cards on file and you don't have Apple Pay set up, you're going to have to exit out of all of your selections. You're gonna lose everything. So just make sure you have those cards on file and up to date. Once you have all of that done, now you're ready to book. You're going to open up your My Disney Experience account, and right at the top of the page, you're going to see that prompt to purchase Lightning Lane. Once you select purchase, it's going to take you to the next page where you're going to select the date that you want to purchase Lightning Lane for. Now, keep in mind, this is your park date, not your check-in date. If you're going to a park on your check-in date and using the Lightning Lane Multipass, great. If you are not, and let's say you're going like the next day, make sure you're choosing the correct date. After you've selected your date, you're going to click continue, and this is where you're going to choose your park. This part might sound a little confusing at first. Don't stress. Don't worry, I got you. You're gonna have your 4 different parks. When you are choosing your multi-pass, you are selecting the park that you want to use your Lightning Lanes in first. If you're park hopping, you're not gonna see a multi-park option, so you're just gonna select that park that you intend on doing first. So for example, in this video, I'm gonna be doing Magic Kingdom in the morning and Hollywood Studios in the afternoon. I wanna use Lightning Lanes at both, so I'm gonna make sure I choose the Magic Kingdom option so that my pre-selections will be for Magic Kingdom. On the flip side, let's say I'm doing that same type of park hopping situation, but I don't wanna use Lightning Lane and Magic Kingdom, I just wanna use them in the afternoon when I go to Hollywood Studios. I'm gonna choose the Hollywood Studios option so that then my pre-selections can be for that park. Be aware that with your pre-selections, they do all have to be in the same park for multi-pass, so you are gonna wanna make sure you choose wisely. Now granted, if you're just visiting Magic Kingdom for the day, then you're just gonna choose the Magic Kingdom one. That's pretty straightforward. Now single pass is where it gets maybe a little bit complicated, but again, it's pretty easy to understand. You can purchase up to 2 Lightning Lane single passes per person per day. Now remember, these are not included with multi-pass. These are like those extra fancy top tier rides that you are purchasing single or purchasing individually. These attractions do not have to be in the same park. Again, you do have to have a park hopper ticket if you're wanting them in different parks. That is kind of a given for all of these, but just as a disclaimer, you can only park hop if you have a park hopper ticket. But let's say in our same scenario, Magic Kingdom in the morning, Hollywood Studios in the afternoon, I'm wanting to book a Lightning Lane single pass for Tron in the morning and Rise of the Resistance in the afternoon. I can do that because those are two different rides and those are the two different parks that I am eligible to park hop in. Going back to the selection page, I'm going to collect multi-pass for whichever park I'm intending on using. Again, you're only buying it one time per day, so I don't have to buy it for both Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios. I just am buying it for Magic Kingdom because it automatically comes with that park hopping option when I do that. And then additionally, I'm also going to select whichever up to 2 Lightning Lane single passes that I'm wanting. Now again, you do not have to purchase Lightning Lane single pass, and I'll be honest, for a lot of these rides, I don't think you need it, but if that's something that you're wanting to do, you'll select those on this page. This page is also going to show you prices for all of these individual items, and the price is going to be per person. Lightning Lane single pass are going to range pretty greatly depending on the ride, crowds, that sort of thing. I've seen it be anywhere from around like $7 to $8 to $25. So make sure you're looking at those prices. Multi-pass is also going to vary from park to park and day to day. I've seen Animal Kingdom anywhere as low as $15 to $18 and Magic Kingdom as high as anywhere from around $39. Luckily with this new system, you are able to see things usually several weeks in advance. So you can look ahead of time and kind of get a guesstimate of how much you're going to be spending. Now that you've selected all that, you're going to click continue and it'll take you to the next page where you select your friends and family that are going to be using these systems with you. Now remember, the prices are per person, so you are going to be purchasing it per person for everyone that you select. Very important, huge pro tip that you need to know is that anyone you select is locked in for anything that you are booking. Let's say in your family, you've got a young kiddo who is not tall enough to ride Tron, but dad and big brother do want to ride Tron. If that is the case, I recommend doing your single pass selections in a totally separate transaction, because if you select it at this stage, but they are also doing multi-pass, you are going to be buying that single pass for them. So again, just be aware if there's anybody in your party that is not wanting to do these initial selections, you need to make sure that you do those things kind of like in separate transactions so that you can divvy things up. Now for multi-pass, after your 3 selections are done and you're booking more things like day of, you will have more control of being able to choose like certain people in your party. So we'll get more to that later, but just as a heads up. Now that you've selected everyone in your party, click continue, and this is where you're going to choose the attractions for your day. With Lightning Lane Multi-Pass, you get up to 3 attractions that you can pre-book for your trip. Now for Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, and Epcot, these are going to be divvied up into 2 tiers. You've got your Tier 1 attractions and your Tier 2 attractions. Tier 1 attractions are gonna be the most popular rides in the park. Tier 2 is gonna be everything else. You are able to pick 1 ride from Tier 1 and 2 rides from Tier 2, or if you don't want to do any Tier 1 rides, you can do 3 rides from Tier 2. Don't worry, you don't have to like get super in depth and trying to remember what all these rides are. It actually lists it out for you, very easy to see. Up at the top are going to be all your Tier 1 attractions. You'll just select one of those and then the rest of them will gray out. You'll scroll down a little farther and then you'll be able to select your 2 Tier 2 attractions, and once you've done that, everything else will gray out. Now if you're booking for Animal Kingdom, there is no tier system in that park, so you can choose any 3 rides that are available. Once you've chosen your 3 rides, you're going to click continue, and this is going to take you to the screen that shows you your return times. Automatically, it's going to give you the earliest available time. However, a really cool feature is that you are able to technically choose your time. So if the times given don't work for you, or you want something a little earlier or later, you can modify it. Now, a lot of this is going to be based on availability. So for example, for me, since I'm kind of booking in that later booking window, a lot of things were already booked up. So a lot of my return times were later and I couldn't really modify them to super early. I'm not going to panic yet because there are some tips and tricks and things that we're going to do when we get into the park. But the nice thing is that it does hold those original times for you for 5 minutes. So if you want to try and kind of see if you can modify to a different time, you can go ahead and do that. I don't recommend spending a whole ton of time on this page modifying, especially if you have more than than one day that you have to book, because you are going to have to do each day in separate transactions. You're going to want to make sure that you're doing this very quickly. Once you have your return windows kind of the way that you like them, you'll go ahead and click continue and enter through the rest of that payment system, and then you're done. Something else that is included with your multi-pass purchase is your ride photos. Now, you do not get full memory maker, so like all of the like photo pass photographers, that is not included, but you do get your actual ride photos included when you purchase multipass. You also get access to the AR lenses in the My Disney Experience app. These are just kind of some fun little filters and things, so if that's your thing, cool, those are also included. All right, so you've got these 3 pre-selections, you've got your single pass. Is that all that you are allowed to use in the day? No, thank goodness. That would make me very sad if that was the amount of money that I was paying for just those 3 things. We'll walk through this a little bit better once I get to my actual park day, but just as an idea, once you arrive on your park day and you scan into your first lightning lane of the day, you have now unlocked more booking capabilities. Not only have you booked more booking capabilities, you've also opened the door to be able to book rides in other parks if you have that park hopper option. This also means that you have opened the door to be able to modify your other 2 lightning lanes to another park if you so choose. And finally, once you have used that first lightning lane, tiers do not exist anymore. You are able to book any ride from any tier that is available. But basically, the general rule now is that once you use a lightning lane, you can book another one. Once you use that lightning lane, you can book another one, and so on and so forth all day until you either run out of lightning lane passes that are available or you've done everything that you want to do. What's even better about this is that it's almost like a rolling 3 lightning lanes, because you have those 3 pre-selections, right? Well, you can book lightning lanes after each one of those. So you should essentially have 3 rolling lightning lanes all day long. And that's a very important tip to make sure that you are maximizing lightning lane multipass. Hopefully that wasn't all too confusing. My goal is to try and make things simple, but now we're going to fast forward a few days to when I'm actually going to use the system in real time, and we're gonna walk through all of this together. And we're back. So now that you kind of understand what is going on and what this whole system is all about, we are going to head into the park and actually test this system out. My first stop is Tomorrowland, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about how my booking process went the other morning. And welcome to Tomorrowland. Let's talk a little bit first about how booking all of my pre-selections went. So as a refresher, since I am an annual pass holder, I was able to book my 3 pre-selections 3 days in advance of the park day that I wanted to use it for, which is today, August 4th. Now, because I was booking at 3 days and not the 7 days, my options were definitely a lot more limited. So I did notice that when I was booking my pre-selections, a lot of the return times were not until later in the afternoon. So when I originally was booking, my goal was just to kind of grab some rides and just get what I was gonna get. I was able to get Jungle Cruise, which is a good one. Tiana's was booked up, so I was not able to get that, but who knows, maybe we'll still have some luck and grab one today. We shall see. But I was able to grab Jungle Cruise, which is probably, I would say, like my second best pick. However, again, we shall see how today goes, because it is gonna rain probably pretty soon. And when it does rain, if there's lightning in the area, a lot of the outdoor attractions will close. So you know what, today's a day we're just gonna make do and see what happens. And if anything else, we can at least play around with the system so I can show you how that works so that you can be ready to go whenever you come on your trip. Now you're probably wondering why I'm at Tomorrowland Speedway, and a big reason for that, like I said, a lot of return times were not until later in the afternoon. However, I did not want to wait until the afternoon to be able to book any more lightning lanes, A, because it's getting ready to rain, but also I feel like you get the best bang for your buck when you can book earlier in the day. So my goal, after I just went ahead and I booked 3, I went back in and I modified my Pirates reservation, and because Pirates is one that the wait time fluctuates wildly all day long, and so that's honestly one that I would say if wait times are pretty long, like just do that one in the evening because it'll usually shorten up, or you can probably find a lightning lane later in the day. Whereas Haunted Mansion is probably a little bit harder to get, and that one tends to book up a lot faster too. So I'm keeping the Haunted Mansion one, and I changed the Pirates one to Tomorrowland Speedway because that was the only ride that I could find for like as close to 9 a.m. as possible. I do not recommend Tomorrowland Speedway as one of your first lightning lanes. I really don't recommend doing that. I'm doing it today for the purpose of being able to, you know, get back in the app and show you as quickly as possible before things run out. Again, like I said, this video is not a super great like strategy, so don't necessarily watch this as far as like how to do this strategy. Watch it as far as how we are actually supposed to use this system, or like how it works, more of the logistics and playing around with it. So now that we got all of that out of the way, let's go ride Tomorrowland Speedway, and then we're gonna get back in the app and see what we can do next. First ride and first lightning lane of the day down. As soon as I scanned into Tomorrowland Speedway, I jumped back on the app to book my next lightning lane, since now I'm eligible to do so. Now, a huge pro tip to remember is that once you book that first lightning lane, you unlock a world of possibilities. A lot of things that applied to pre-booking no longer apply and are just, you can kind of just toss those out the window. Number one of those being that tiers do not exist. Once you book that first lightning lane, you can book any ride from any tier. Of course, you cannot book single pass, like with your multi-pass, that's not a thing, but anything that is eligible for multi-pass is fair game. Along with this, you also unlock park hopping capabilities. If I were sticking to my original plan of hopping to Hollywood Studios today, I do have that option to now book lightning lanes for Hollywood Studios as well as Magic Kingdom or any other park. Additionally, I also now have the option to modify those original pre-selections to different park attractions. Now, before I had used that first lightning lane, if I wanted to change it to a different attraction in Magic Kingdom, or I wanted to change it to a different time, I could totally do that. I would still have to say, like, if it was a tier 2, it would still have to be a tier 2 ride. Tier 1, it could be a tier 1 or tier 2 ride. But now that I've used that first lightning lane, I can also modify those to a different park. So as an example, let's say I just wanted to use my first lightning lane in Magic Kingdom, and then I wanted really to use all the rest of my lightning lanes in Hollywood Studios. I could technically go ahead and go change those 2 other lightning lanes for attractions in Hollywood Studios. So those are all of the options that you could do. As I said, as soon as I scanned in, I got in the app and I got on my tip board. This is where you're going to be primarily booking your lightning lanes from. As I was scrolling through, I had kind of 2 goals, I guess, with my strategy. Number 1, try and get a lightning lane for as early as possible, so that, because again, the earlier that you can use them, the more you can book throughout the day. And I'm trying to also do a lot of the outdoor attractions first, because those will definitely close as soon as there's lightning in the area. Luckily, I was able to snag Big Thunder Mountain Railroad for $9.55. It's $9.38 now, so that's only in just a few minutes. So that worked out really, really well. After I booked that, I was curious to see what availability looked like for modifying. Now, for the past several days, I have been trying to modify some of those afternoon lightning lanes for earlier in the day, because I don't know how well I'll be able to use some of those later today. It may work out. I don't know. We're gonna keep our eye out, but who knows? But if I can get them earlier, that would be ideal. However, the past several days, I've had 0 luck. I have not been able to modify hardly anything to anything earlier. I think I've only been able to move it like maybe 20 minutes earlier. Haunted Mansion, I haven't been able to modify at all. However, this is another really big tip, is don't give up and keep checking, because after I booked that Big Thunder one, I went in to modify Haunted Mansion just to see if there was anything earlier available, and there was one for $9.55. And yes, I was able to book that. So that is another thing that kind of goes out the window once you book that first lightning lane, is when you're booking your pre-selections, you can't really overlap your return times. The system won't let you. However, once you're in the park, you've used your first lightning lane, and you know, all the rules change again, you can overlap those rides. So I currently do hold a Haunted Mansion and Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, both for $9.55. These attractions are pretty much in the same area generally of the park, so I should be able to get both of those done, no problem. But it is good to know, and that can be a really good tip if there are attractions that are in the same area and they have like overlapping times. That's a good time saver if you can kind of like quote unquote stack those up so that you can just kind of go bam, bam, bam and knock those out. But that also goes to show that refreshing is going to be your best friend, and I will not lie that that is not my favorite thing, because that does require a little extra time on my phone than I like to spend. My tip to you to kind of help manage this so that you're not like getting consumed by trying to modify your times constantly is maybe once you get in line for a queue, if it's, you know, you're riding the lightning lane or you're doing the regular line, give yourself 5 minutes and say, I'm going to modify for 5 minutes. And if I can get it, great. And if not, just let it be. And then you can always pick it back up again later and try again. So it is kind of like a system you got to play with, but at the same time, don't let it consume your whole day. It is now 9:41, so my lightning lane starts here in about 10 minutes. Now you can scan into your lightning lane about 5 minutes early, so I am gonna try and do that to kind of just give myself a little bit more buffer time to ride Haunted Mansion and then get over to Big Thunder, since Haunted Mansion is a little bit longer of an attraction. But it is good to know that you do still have those grace periods of 5 minutes before your return time and usually about 10 to 15 minutes after. If you have something happen, like you have a dining reservation that runs long and it makes you run out of your lightning lane time, make sure you're keeping your receipts and you just talk to the cast member and let them know that what happened. Be warned that it is up to the cast member's discretion on whether or not they will let you in if you're going past your like expired return window, but be kind. It never hurts to ask. And obviously, if you can modify it to a time that works better, I highly recommend doing that over letting your passes expire. All right, let's go ride Haunted Mansion. Just as a heads up, because again, weather's weird today. Crowd levels are pretty low. Haunted Mansion is actually a walk-on right now. 13 minutes means that it's a walk-on for this attraction. But, you know, lightning lane's a lightning lane.
Is this haunted room actually stretching?
All right, just got off Haunted Mansion. It is now 10:08, so currently I am eligible for my Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. However, remember, after you scan into an attraction, you gotta book another one immediately, every single time. So right after I scanned in, I got on the app and I was able to snag a Small World for 10:05, so that started 4 minutes ago. So again, these are all kind of overlapping, which isn't a bad thing. It means I get things done very quickly. But since Small World is right here, I'm gonna go ahead and ride that right now before I head over to Big Thunder Mountain. And then we're gonna hopefully have 2 more lightning lanes. Additionally, I am still trying to see if I can snag a Tiana's. We shall see. But so far, I think we're doing pretty good. Another ride down. So now it's time to head over to Big Thunder. It is 10:27, so I still have about half an hour until my lightning lane expires. Once I scanned into Small World again, it is time to book another lightning lane. And now is kind of a good time to talk about the game that is Lightning Lane Multipass. Mark Allen and I were talking about this the other day, and he was like, this literally feels like a game of Bop It. So I think now we are gonna lovingly call this game Bop It. Because basically, with this system, you kind of just gotta click really fast. So you gotta bop it, right? So whenever you see those return times, you gotta bop it. But then you also gotta refresh a lot. So, you know, you flick it, you pull it, you twist it. You tracking with me? If that's dumb, blame Mark Allen. It was his idea. But now that I am actually using the system, I would say that it fits pretty well. So after I scanned in for Small World, I jumped back on my app and I saw a Pirates lightning lane. Now it wasn't until like 3 o'clock, but I went ahead and I bopped it really fast because you just got to grab them while you can. I went through and I confirmed my selection, and I was like, you know what, let's see if we can get a better time. So pulled it back up, went to modify, and you got to swipe it, pull it, refresh, and I was actually able to get an earlier Pirates of the Caribbean for around noon, which I think should work pretty good. Once we get off Big Thunder Mountain, we can head that way. I'm actually decently impressed with how much that we have been able to do and book so far. So far, the sky is still looking at least a little sunshiny, so we don't have to bail yet, but we've already ridden the Speedway, Haunted Mansion, Small World. We also have booked Big Thunder, Jungle Cruise, and Pirates. So that's 6 attractions that I've gotten to skip the line today for, or will get to skip the line today for. But today is shaping up to be a little bit better than I thought it would be. Now, a tip I would say when you are planning on the lightning lanes that you're trying to book, I would keep your eye on the tip board a week or two before you go on your trip, just to kind of see which lightning lanes tend to sell out faster. For this park, kind of a weird one that has been happening with is Winnie the Pooh. Now, that is another attraction that the wait will fluctuate quite a bit during the day, but if that is a ride that's important to you, you got littles who love Winnie the Pooh, I would probably suggest prioritizing that ride, because most of the day today, whenever I have looked, Winnie the Pooh hasn't been available until later in the afternoon, and I know that as time goes on, it may eventually even sell out. I am glad that I got a lightning lane for Big Thunder though, because that line is looking pretty long. Just got off Big Thunder Mountain, and I booked my next lightning lane for Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin. However, the time is not until 1:45. My Pirates is now at 12:20 and Jungle Cruise is at 1. Currently it's 10:57, so I have like an hour still, an hour and 20 minutes before I can use my next lightning lane. So I'm gonna try and see if I can modify one of these to an earlier time. So again, we're gonna just kind of go to our ride, select the ride, click modify, and then up at the top is going to be the ride with whatever the next available time is. Now, this is where we're playing our Bop It game, right? So we're gonna swipe it. That's not the word. We're gonna flick it, pull it, twist it, flick it, pull it, and we're just gonna keep playing this game just to see if anything earlier happens to pop up. You can keep refreshing like this, but the other option, like if I'm just looking for that attraction and not multiple attractions, is go ahead and click change to this time. Don't worry, whenever you do that, it doesn't like lock in the new time. You're still locked into whatever your original time is, but now what this will do is lock in whatever time you clicked on. It will hold that for 5 minutes, so we can just keep modifying. So then what we're gonna do is this modify time button, we're just gonna keep bopping that and see if we get lucky. Boom. I just got 11:30, so that's even better. So that is only 30 minutes from now instead of an hour and 20 minutes. So now that we did that, you can see that it still has it locked in that time. You still have the option to keep modifying if you want to, but now it's gonna hold that new time for you while we play and play and play. But what I'm gonna do, just so that I don't like accidentally lose that good time, is I'm gonna go down to the bottom and click continue. So now that new time of 11:30 is locked in. That is now my lightning lane return time. But if I wanna continue to modify that further, maybe let's try for Jungle Cruise. Let's modify Jungle Cruise and see if we can get anything earlier for that, because that one is outdoors. So the earlier we can do that one, the better. So again, we can pull it, flick it, twist it, and then whenever you find a time, you're gonna bop it. I don't actually want that time, but we're gonna go to the modify page, and we're gonna keep doing it this way, just to see if we can get anything a little earlier.
5 minutes later.
Well, I think that's about as good as we're gonna get them right now, because again, I don't want to sit here for 30 minutes and actually keep modifying, because that is a waste of time. What I would be doing if I was not filming a video right now is I would be doing what's called like a filler attraction. These are rides that typically have lower weights or no weight at all. For example, Country Bear Musical Jamboree has newly reopened and has a totally new theme and vibe to it. That would be a great attraction to go do right now while I'm waiting for that next Lightning Lane return time. Some other things you can do is go get a snack, go get some photos taken with PhotoPass photographers. There's all kinds of different things that you can do, but for the purpose of today's video, I'm mostly just focusing on those Lightning Lanes, just so that I can really give you a good handle of like how the system all works. But if you do want to check out my Country Bear Jamboree video, we do have that link in the description box below. So this is another time to just mention that the crowds are unusual today. So right now Pirates is only a 15-minute wait, which means that it's really not a long wait at all. So you probably don't need a Lightning Lane at this very moment, but you know, it is what it is. I would say that if you are here actually using this, I would opt to use the standby line if it is really short, and save your Lightning Lanes for those attractions that do actually have longer waits. And then if you have, like, you've done all the ones that you've wanted to do and you have more time and there are Lightning Lanes available, then go ahead and do maybe some of those attractions that you don't necessarily need them for. But you kind of just have to play it by ear and look at the wait times and look at all the things, and don't let it overwhelm you. Just, you know, enjoy your time, have a little bit of a plan of the things that you want to do the most, and focus on those. All right, it's time. Let's go ride Pirates. So there is a little bit of a line, but it moves pretty quick. So at least we do get to skip a little bit of a wait. So I think that definitely did save me a little bit of time. I don't think the line was like crazy long. It probably wouldn't have been a very long wait, but it did save me a little bit of time. I know I keep saying this, but I do want to reiterate that today is a little bit of an abnormal day as far as crowd levels, especially because the impending storm. And crowd levels in general right now have been not super intense. But this is something that I am finding to be really interesting about this new Lightning Lane service, is that it's almost creating a false demand for certain attractions. For example, Jungle Cruise. That was one of the pre-selections that I did. That was my tier 1 pre-selection, and I got it for 1 p.m. and I have not been able to modify it for an earlier time. And as of right now, the earliest time available is like 7 o'clock tonight. However, the wait is 25 minutes right now, which is very, very low for Jungle Cruise, especially at this time of day. So it is something I do find to be a little weird and a little misleading with this whole system. So I don't know how I feel about that. I'll be super honest that I am very torn about this new system and whether or not I like it. Today it's been working relatively well. It's actually been working better than I expected, but I don't know if that's because of the crowd levels or if that really is how the system goes or what the deal is. But I do want to set the realistic expectation for you that I would definitely count that you'll at least be able to get your 3 pre-selections. As to what rides you get and what times you get, who knows? That there's a lot of variables there, but I do know that you'll at least be able to do those 3 things. And if that is the case, that's up to 3 hours of time that you did save by not having to stand in line. And so I think if that base cost is worth it to you, then I think it can totally be worth it to purchase Lightning Lane Multipass. If that is not worth it to you, then definitely, obviously, you're going to try and get more Lightning Lanes as the day goes on. And of course, the more Lightning Lanes you can get, the better use of your money. But a lot of times people are always like, is Lightning Lane worth it? Is it worth buying? And it's like, It just depends on how you value it. I think for me, if I were going on a vacation to Disney and I were staying at a Disney resort and I knew that I had that 7-day booking window, so I had a little bit more of an advantage, and I was able to know, like, with confidence that I would be able to get times that I want for the attractions that I want, then I think that, to me, like, yeah, that would be absolutely worth it in my opinion. For me as a local annual pass holder who can only book 1 day at a time, 3 days in advance, you're kind of starting out with the odds stacked against you a little bit. Now, granted, you can modify, refresh, do all of that stuff, and that can definitely be to your advantage. But one thing that I liked about Genie Plus is that I actually felt like I was on my phone less because I'm only worrying about one thing at a time. With this new system, you're constantly having 3 different lightning lanes that you're having to worry about, juggle with your schedule, try and modify and get better times, booking them. And I feel like, I don't know, I'm very torn because I feel like this system is in theory easier, but it feels a lot more complicated. And again, this is my very first day using it in person, and I've already done a lot of research trying to learn how to use this system. So I feel like this is a decently accurate representation of what your average day guest is going to be experiencing when using the system for the first time. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat it and say like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And like, I mean, I think it's great that you get to skip the line, and I do appreciate that there is an option for that. But I do think, like any system, there's always going to be flaws, and it'll be interesting to see if there are any tweaks or improvements made in the future to, you know, make the system a little easier and less complicated. So now it is just before noon. My next lightning lane is not until 1 o'clock, so I have basically an hour to do something. I have tried to modify all my lightning lanes as best I can, and I don't think I'm going to get them any better than what they are right now. So I think maybe now is the time for me to go grab a little snack, maybe go watch like Enchanted Tiki Room or whatever, just to kill some time. And then we'll ride Jungle Cruise, and then we'll see what the weather is looking like to see if we can keep on going for the day. All right, well, that was a interesting moment. So I went over to the spring roll cart to get some spring rolls because that's just what sounded good. And it was the only like non-ice cream thing in the closest vicinity. So got those, and literally as I was taking the lid off the sauce, it started pouring, like just bam, like so fast. So that was fun. So I had to try and like rip my umbrella out of my bag and try and keep my camera and my food from getting soaked. So it's fine. We survived. Went over to Casey's to get a little bit of shelter for a moment so that I could eat my food. But it lined up. I think it's still sprinkling like a little bit, but this will be interesting. I really want to ride Jungle Cruise. That's like my goal. If I can't ride anything after Jungle Cruise and I gotta go home, then cool. But I'm hoping that the rain will at least hold off for like another 30 minutes. It's 12:15, so I needed to hold off for like 45 minutes. We shall see. What a day. But now that I have a little bit of nourishment in my body and I've got some time to kill, I think I'm gonna go watch Enchanted Tiki Room because I know there won't be a wait for that, and it's right by where I need to be. So let's go do that. Pouring again. I have 5 minutes until my Jungle Cruise lightning lane. I think we're gonna try and do it. Definitely skipping a good line. And with that, I think it is about time for me to call it quits for the day. I'm glad I was able to at least ride Jungle Cruise. And I will be honest, I actually still have 3 more lightning lanes stacked up for the afternoon. I got a Journey Under the Sea with the Little Mermaid and Space Mountain and Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin. However, I can tell that the rain is gonna start coming any time now, and I think I would like to not drive in that if I can avoid it, so I think I'm gonna head home. But hopefully I was able to give you a really good idea of just like practically using this in the park and how it functions and how it flows. My final thoughts, feelings, opinions. I'm still really torn on whether or not I like this system. Things that I do like, I really do think that the interface itself is much easier to navigate. It is very user-friendly. It walks you through the steps very clearly. So I do think that as far as like a usability, there's not going to be as much of a learning curve, which is great. I did find that it was actually pretty easy to get most everything that I wanted to today. I mean, if we look at everything, the only thing I was not able to get was Tiana's, and I think if I would have kept trying, or if I was planning on being here for the whole day, then I probably would have been able to grab one. I actually did get a virtual queue, but I'm probably gonna cancel that because I'm not gonna stay. So I would say definitely try and get those virtual queues if you can, if you're not able to get the lightning lane. But I do think from that standpoint, it is great. I think that if you are staying on property, that 7-day booking window is going to be absolutely huge in getting those first picks for like those most popular rides like Tiana's. It'll be interesting to see in the coming weeks as crowds start getting busier. Oh, there's the rain again. It'll be interesting to see in the coming weeks as things start to get busier again, what availability looks like. It's weird because like there is availability and you definitely can get the things that you want. However, it does take a little bit more time and more finagling, I think, than it did with Genie Plus. Again, I think a big reason for that, and it really makes sense logically, is with Genie Plus, everyone had one ride at a time. They were doing one ride. Obviously, if you were doing like the 120-minute rule and all that kind of thing, you maybe had a few, but not everyone was doing that all day long. With this new system, everybody is starting out with 3, and they are continually having 3 booked all day long, which, if you think about it, that means things are going to disappear 3 times as fast. So I don't particularly love that you have so many things that you have to juggle now. That is probably the thing that I find the most stressful, is not only do you have to think about pre-booking now, so I have to think 3 days ahead of time, or 7 days ahead of time. Granted, I feel like the planning aspect is a little more complicated now because, again, with Genie Plus, you only had one thing that you had to worry about, and then you could kind of just play it by ear. Whereas now with the new system, you have 3 things that you're trying to juggle with at all times, which can get a little confusing and complicated when you're trying to make sure that you're not picking rides that are like all the way on the other side of the park and like super close times together and things like that. So those are things to consider. Again, today was not necessarily meant to be a strategy video. This is more of a how do you use this system video. I will be doing a strategy video once there's not a hurricane. So I do plan on doing more videos like this that will be more on the strategy side to help you figure out kind of like what would be a good game plan for you to be able to get the most out of this system. And we can really put it to the test with things like actually park hopping and doing all of that fun stuff. Now, for those of you that are my Standby Skipper friends, don't panic, don't worry. As of right now, at the time of filming, Standby Skipper has updated that they do have a solution. However, keep in mind that they were only able to get their hands on the new system the same time we were, and so it takes a little time to do all that coding and basically refiguring out how to create an app. I will hopefully have more details on that coming soon once they make some official announcements, so stay tuned for that. And I'm sure that once that system goes live, I will definitely be doing some testing with it to show you how that can help make this new system even easier. Make sure if you have any questions regarding Lightning Lane Multipass that you leave those in the comments for me so that hopefully we can answer those in future videos. And of course, make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss out when those videos come out. And that is all I have for you guys today. Now go create your ever after.